Should I have the bone to pick with you about me being conservative? Apparently,
Well, I called you a conservative libertarian. I mean, I think
I'm
probably
not
what I really
conservative.
meant to say. But I think a lot of the stuff that you end up talking about kind of falls onto that side, just because that's where
Yeah,
I think
because
that's
a lot of them
probably
are
where
my
the discussion
friends.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I myself, I don't really consider myself to be a conservative. I'm very much in the Michael Malice school, which is conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit, and I am not a progressive.
Well, I mean, what I mean by conservative libertarians, I don't mean that they're conservative, big con. We should talk about that.
Yeah, let's go on.
But more like kind of more socially conservative libertarians. Like,
I mean, the only thing I'm socially conservative on, really, if we want to talk about that, is tattoos. Can't stand them. That's it. I mean,
I love
yeah,
them.
sure.
Yeah, I want my
I
girls
don't
covered in ink.
men as well. I think it looks weird on men too. But like I mean, yeah, I mean, promiscuity and stuff is kind of, it's not ideal, is it? It's not good or anything. But I don't preach. I don't tell people what they can and cannot do with their own bodies. I'm just like, do it, but when the consequences inevitably happen, don't come crying to me.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. Like, yeah, go have sex with hundreds of women, hundreds of men. It's going to come back to haunt you. You should probably have a bit of fun and then settle down, because eventually it's just going to make you empty and feel worthless, because it does, doesn't it, having too much
It does.
sex?
It does.
Yeah.
For coming from a certain
Yeah.
experience. But I have like talked about this like briefly, because I remember like early on I used to talk about like, oh, I don't need a girlfriend, like I just get what I need and move along, and have friends and stuff like that. But then like it really does start to feel empty. Like you, and there is like the psychological thing of like I meet a girl, we have our moment, and then they go away. Your brain, there's like a part of your brain that starts going like, I'll never be loved. Yeah, like they don't like you. That's why they leave. There's a kind of thing that kind of itches in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it's sad. So anyway, let's dunk on Big Con.
Yeah. So you did a video recently where you were talking about.
I was a Johnny Come Lately. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on any of my because I haven't been live streaming since that's kind of stuff happening. But I've noticed that people have kind of been picking sides on this, and I'm kind of like, I think both of you guys are stupid. I think Nick Rekieta like has some really good points, and I think like the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro, I think they have some legitimate points too. I think they're both right. But I think at the end of the day, I think they're both being kind of shitty. So I mean, like at the end of the day, like, because so Steven Crowder wasn't really upfront with all of the things that were going on with that contract, and at the same time, like they were putting things into that contract that's not good if your goal is to push your ideas forward, and then financially punishing your contractors for not falling in line with these rules. I think there should be some sort of middle ground. But at the same time, I mean, this is an offer. Like this is one of those. They have a cookie cutter contract that they give to everybody, and the idea is, okay, we're going to negotiate the terms of this contract. But to present it like, oh yeah, this is the final thing. It's not a good thing to even be in the initial contract, but at the same time, it's not set in stone. He made it seem like this was the offer, take it or leave it, and it never was. And he also didn't mention the money that they was being offered in relation to the fees, and I think that's kind of also important too. But what was your take on it?
I ignored the drama for the most part, because even though it was interesting and funny, I do love following the drama, but when I made that video, I thought that's immaterial. All this stuff about him versus the Daily Wire and stuff like that, like no, immaterial. The contract stuff, as bad as that is immaterial, because what Crowder may or may not have he may have accidentally done this, he may have done it on purpose, but what he's actually brought up is more important, and that is Big Con. What is Big Con? It's the people who claim to be our thought leaders, claim to be the ones who represent us, like the Daily Wire, but not the Blaze, actually, because it turns out they're probably all right, but the person suing them, people like Sydney Watson, they're the issues. These are the people who are the problem. These people who come in, become leaders who are accepted, and then lead us down this really stupid path, or lead us astray, and do everything they can to make sure we can't succeed. And that is something that Crowder touched on when he mentioned that Daily Wire were working with big tech. Why else were they tolerated on the platform? Why were they never demonetized and stuff like that? And that's what I was trying to get at the video. Like, he's opened a can of worms that must not be closed.
Mhm.
Like, and I wanted people to think about seriously who they've been supporting for years and years and years, and ask them, have they really done anything for them? Have they done anything to advance the cause, the cause of freedom and liberty and stuff like that? And for most of these people, the answer is no. They've not done anything. And you have to ask, why are they so accepted even now? Why haven't they been hounded out and destroyed, or at the very least made it difficult to have their stuff released? Like, why is it that people like Sydney Watson, these Johnny come latelys, can come in, garner huge followings all of a sudden, based largely on their gender? Let's be honest.
And their looks.
And their looks. And be tolerated. And when you criticize them, say, well, hang on, how did this person who was a feminist not too long ago suddenly become right wing all of a sudden, and is now suing the Blaze TV or whatever they're called for I think it's for there was some employment thing as well, but also I think she accused them of harassment and stuff like that.
I think it was with her former co-host of that show.
Yeah, and let's just say that
Elijah something was his name.
Yeah, Elijah. Yeah, even though I think her accusations are a bit suspect to say the least. But why are these people tolerated? They've done nothing. They've done nothing. If anything, they're dragging you down. They're the most milquetoast. Like, if they're not the most milquetoast people who are tolerated and don't do anything and just make sure that nothing is changed, so that they have something to complain about and you have something to complain about, so they can make money, which is what it is. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, but people like Candace
Owens, prime example.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, do these people really want change, or do they want the status quo so they can continue making money and you continue to be the serf that you are? And most of them are like that, and it's always been the case since the 60s, 50s, maybe. Why did Goldwater lose? He was a legit OG. He lost to Nixon. Nixon then pretends to be the most right-wing candidate he could possibly be in all his elections, and then he ended up doing the most progressive shit in the 70s. Like, come on, affirmative action is his baby, not Kennedy, not LBJ, him.
Yeah,
and Reagan wasn't exactly the most right-wing person either, or Thatcher even, to be honest. But that's another can of worms. But again, these people were at least legit, though. But in terms of the commentary and stuff like that, like, yeah, these people don't have your best interests at heart, and then most of them never have done.
Yeah, there's a lot of criticism that I would love. I'd love to throw shade at Steven Crowder.
I don't particularly like him, but
no, I don't either.
Dislike him either,
But at least, given the stuff that I've seen, it seems like he actually does give a shit about the things that he talks about. Otherwise, he wouldn't be out there talking to college kids.
And he has been targeted. He's had his income on YouTube removed, and he's entirely reliant on Mud Club and stuff like that. Like, that's when you know he's legit. Like when he's entirely fan funded and stuff like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But when you criticize these people when they're too popular, you get told, "Oh, you it's just infighting and stuff like that. Stop causing drama." When you've got a legit gripe against these people, I've been warning about this for years. Like, stop introducing these people into your movements just because they happen to be women, just because they happen to be this, that, and the other. And do it on merit. Like, we don't need a lot of it. It depends. So if you're on the more moderate side of the spectrum, which is most people, the reason why they have people like Sydney Watson come in and they have someone like Candace Owens is because they don't want to look racist and sexist. Well, excuse me, we don't need to look like that, because we've got Ayn Rand, we've got Thomas Sowell, we've got Larry Elder. I'm thinking of, we've got who else have we got? Walter. The guy who died recently.
Well,
rest in peace.
We don't have him anymore, but I know
we don't have him anymore.
Yeah. But we don't have Ayn Rand either.
And the Brits, we have our own equivalents, and the French have their own equivalents. We don't need to prove that. We don't need these people to look good, because we've got all these legends. We don't need to prove anything. We don't need them.
Caitlyn Jenner was like a prime example. Like, oh look, we got it. They're literally tokens. They're
Oh,
literally using
Caitlyn was
them as
always right
tokens.
wing, to be fair.
Yeah,
Right?
but they only really started putting a microphone in her face once
Yeah,
she
yeah.
came out as trans, and it was like, okay, we have the see,
Although Caitlyn
we're
Jenner
hip.
says stuff that angers everybody, which I don't mind.
Yeah, buckle up, buckaroos. She's behind the mic
I don't mind
and the
Caitlyn
wheel.
Jenner. I don't get the hate that Caitlyn Jenner gets from
No,
both
yeah,
sides. But,
I'm not hating,
you know.
but the reason why they're
Mm.
really
Yeah,
banking
yeah,
on
yeah.
is because it's just like, well, we're not anti-trans either. Look, we got.
And what
And it's
happens?
like,
You get people who take advantage of that. It could be either they're grifters and just want to make money, or they're infiltrators.
yeah, but it's like,
Mm.
why when you have someone like Blair White, where you could just bring her on and she seems like she gives a shit.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't
then
know, just
even in the smaller, more fringe extreme groups, that happens as well. They'll have somebody come in who's very clearly a bad apple. In fact, has a long history of being a bad apple. So the dissident right recently, they didn't realize that they've got a massive Duganist problem. If you know what Duganism is, guys, it's too complicated to get into, but it's basically
give us the
Bolshevism. It's
okay.
national Bolshevism, but with Russian imperialism tacked on as well. It's complicated, but they're very
imagine
good at
communism plus Nazism in one big ball.
and Russian imperialism. Yeah. So, but they infiltrate the left and the right.
Well, that's communism.
Yeah, they infiltrate the left and the right. But recently, they've gotten into the right, and nobody noticed except for a few, but others have embraced it. And I'm like, well, they're not interested in a strong West. They want to utterly crush the West and create Eurasia, you fucking idiots. Which that's legitimately what Dugin wants. They've been allying a lot with pro-Russian types. And again, it's like, guys, these people don't have your best interests at heart. They don't care about the West. When they talk about the West in decline and stuff, they're not lamenting. They're not helping you. They want that to be weak. They want you to be weak because it helps their geopolitical goals, you idiots. Like you're being had, and it's the same. It's the same when they gush over a country that's apparently based like Russia, like sometimes even China is considered a little bit based because of what they can do, and how they don't tolerate wokeism and stuff, even though they fund it over here using TikTok and stuff like that. But obviously they wouldn't have it in their own country, because if they did, the youth would get distracted and they wouldn't have their army of workers.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do have TikTok there, but the algorithm doesn't let them see it.
They don't let them see it. Yeah. That's all on purpose. But they don't think about this stuff. They don't think, are we being infiltrated by these people? Who are these people? And some of these people do go on about how gatekeeping is necessary and stuff like that, but they don't practice what they preach.
Yeah.
So when I criticize somebody for being an obvious infiltrator or just a grifter, I'm attacked for it, and then when I'm inevitably proven right, oh, this person's gone off the rails. This person's exposed.
Yeah, but you say that about everybody, Mitch. You say that about everybody.
I don't say.
You say that about everybody. That's what I get when I'm like, no, dude, this Molyneux guy, he's a fraud. Don't.
Molyneux's a classic example.
Yeah,
He's still to
and
this day
then he
gets a
did
bit
it,
of respect,
and everybody
though.
was like, well, yeah, but you say that about everybody. And it's like, well, who have I been wrong about? Seems like I just keep hitting them all. Like,
I'm sure I've been wrong on some people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tiny minority, but they're parasites who won't go away, who are very good at what they do. We do have people who are small accounts, but influential accounts, who are white nationalists, who are Duginists, who are Putinists, they are leftists, whatever you want to call them. And if they can stay one person down their path, they've achieved something. This is why I have a zero tolerance approach to these people. If I see them in my chat, if I see these people, on my channel, I don't ban them or block them. I just become hostile so they know not to be around me. You don't need to block or ban them. You can if you want. It's your space. You do what you want with it. It's your castle. I don't need to. I just need to bark really loud and they'll go.
Yeah, I started noticing this. Yeah, I started noticing this. This was like pre. What are the alt-right, when the whole alt-right thing happened, I was like, I already know about this
racist, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, when I first started on YouTube, I was mostly talking about the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project, because I had a
Dude,
friend
like
who was going down that.
what?
Yeah, dude, like, like, you know, like it's like not even like. Oh God, where's my Zeitgeist music at? Dude, like imagine going to the store and getting like free Cheetos, dude. Like it's like free, dude. Like you don't have to pay nothing. And they're like, here you go, dude. So I had a friend who was going down this rabbit hole of the Zeitgeist movement. So I got kind of
I had a
interested
friend who
in
did that too,
busting it, and that's how I got started on YouTube. And when I did, I don't want to name names, but you'll probably know. I'll tell you off air.
I had a friend who told me to watch him. I watched the first 2 and I was like, whatever.
Yeah. But there was like some libertarian guys who were like, oh, you're making libertarian content. Come hang out with us. And the guy who was trying to get me in, or who actually got me into the Skype group, and they were in this group, and it was just constantly like just racial slurs, and I hate racial slurs and just over and over and over. Yeah, it was like early 4chan, but unironic. And it was like, what? And I ended up leaving, but they were like, it was very much kind of like, if you ever had like a Mormon come to your house and you know about Mormonism and you know all the stuff that they believe and the things that they tell you.
Jehovah's Witnesses over here, yeah.
Yeah, or Jehovah's Witnesses do the same thing. It's milk before meat, and they start giving you like little things here and there, like, oh, isn't it weird that like, that there's like 13% of the population responsible for 50% of the crime. Like, isn't it weird how all the people who own media companies, they're all kind of wearing silly hats? Like they just start doing that sort of stuff, and then
isn't it weird
they start breaking you down? That's just. I love my Port Charlotte. Okay.
No, that was an Irish reference because a lot of Wall Street. It's funny. This is actually true. A lot of Wall Street people who own Wall Street companies are Irish or Irish descent, shall we say? They're not real Irish people. They're Irish Americans.
Yeah, I'm Irish American.
Well, I'm probably more Irish than you.
Yeah, but I've noticed that what they do is they find new YouTube creators or content creators who are kind of more on the right-leaning spectrum, sometimes left. Who may be a little bit more red-pilled lefty people, and they just started like they just find them and they start creeping into their DMs and be like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going? Let me be your friend. Let me hang out in your Discord group." Or this was pre-Discord. This was Skype era, and they actively recruit. And and after that whole thing happened with me, and I ended up leaving and stopped talking to all of those people. I found out like Jeffrey Tucker did this article. It was right before, it was right when he started going after the alt-right. He was recalling a time that he got invited to this dinner by this really gorgeous older lady. He said it was sort of like gilfish. I don't think he used the term, but that's what he was getting at. More gilfy, because he was a little bit older when this happened. Yeah. And, it was supposed to be this dinner, like, oh, I want to talk politics. I want to hear what you have to say. And during this course of the conversation, she kept leaning more into like, oh, but Hitler was a good guy, right? You think Hitler was a good guy? And it was just like, this was obviously an attempt to like bait him into joining like all of these kind of groups and stuff. And he saw it for what it was. And I was like, holy shit, this is sort of what's happening. Only they're not using hot chicks. Maybe that should be the tactic. Yeah, they do use chicks, but not they didn't with me.
Oh, they
were just trying to use like, yeah. So it's amazing. Like a lot of people don't know that, but a lot of trans.
Again, it could be anything. People. It could be. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be lefties.